This is Aaron Short Music. I'm here at NAMM 2024 with Fred Greene from Martin Guitar.
Hi Aaron, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you for your time.
Yeah,
this new release has caused quite a stir online, and I want to get some more details about it, take a closer look, and ask you the thought process behind the design.
Okay.
And some other things. So could we start with the initial idea for this guitar? Where does it come from?
Well, we've had a lot of discussions about wood availability, how difficult it is to get exotic tone woods, and how it's becoming more difficult, how the quality of those woods is varying more. And we know the future is probably going to be some kind of a domestic hardwood, something that's easily shipped. I mean, so many governmental agencies are putting all kinds of different restrictions on some of these exotic woods, and it's just getting tougher and tougher. It's hard to imagine a future where those supplies aren't more limited and probably get pretty expensive.
Are you planning ahead, or are you saying we should rush out and buy our D28s tomorrow?
We're planning ahead.
Okay.
I think we're trying to create a path forward. This is our 190th year in business, and that's pretty rare. You don't get to 190 years unless you're taking a long view. Now, we know a lot of guitar companies are maybe currently not family owned or probably owned by hedge funds or money managers, and they have a much shorter time frame. So sometimes their decision making is on a much shorter time frame. And we realize that small builders, I mean, they can use exotic tone woods because they use such a small amount. But for guys like ourselves, we really want to be thinking about where the business is going, and we view ourselves more like caretakers of the brand. We're not going to get rich doing this. Nobody's getting rich making Martin guitars. Maybe Mr. Martin, but not the rest of us. And he's doing well.
Hi, Chris.
Chris was doing well before we got here, trust me. But we do view ourselves as caretakers of the brand. And so we know we're going to have to hand this off to other people, other employees, and other guitar players in the future. And we want to set a path forward. So back to the guitar, we wanted to use some domestic hardwoods. And in this particular case, we took the option of using maple. And as we've talked about other times, maple is an interesting tone wood on acoustic guitars. We've made maple guitars before. Obviously, Gibson's made tons of maple guitars. Taylor makes maple guitars. And in most cases, people will make a jumbo, right? Because maple has this really strong fundamental note. It's very dry, it's kind of compressed. And so you can overcome that with a big body. But we wanted to make a more modern shape. We didn't just want to stick it in a dreadnought because it just doesn't work for us that well. So we chose this GP body shape to make the guitar. So as we're going through the process, we make as you would expect, a maple guitar out of a GP, and we were just a little bit underwhelmed. And we weren't really surprised by that, to be honest with you. That's kind of what we expected. And
so, sorry, the first guitar you made then for this was a maple version.
Yeah.
And you went from there to revoice it to sound how you want it to be.
My first thought was, when you're making a guitar that sort of has an environmentalist bent to it, people they understand it, but they sort of roll their eyes. They feel like they're having to buy something that's less than. The analogy I've been using is, it almost feels like taking medicine. You know it's good for you, but you kind of cringe and you swallow it down, but you don't really like it. And we didn't want this guitar to be that. We wanted to prove to guitar players that maple's a good tone wood, and there's ways to play with the recipe of what you do to give guitar players something new. And in order to do that, we needed to put some elements in the guitar that were visually compelling, but at the same time were practical for production and what we could make, and worked. They have to sound good. There has to be some science behind what you're doing at the same time. So trying to find things that do all of that in one is really tough. It's not an easy thing, especially at a traditional company like Martin. Really
so this is how you did it, right?
There it is. As you can see, we wanted to weight relief these braces inside the guitar. We went with a honeycomb pattern, which also has an X in between each honeycomb.
Do you make electric guitars now as well?
Yeah, you can hear that coming through.
That's all right. We can still hear.
We'll make it work.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so the idea there being we want the tops to move, and so if you make the tops a little bit lighter, it requires less energy for the top to move. And then we did it on the backs also. And then we added these tone grooves into the instrument, once again, to allow the whole thing to just sort of move a little better, and for us to sort of sweeten up the tone of the maple that we were getting.
So you're still hand carving the bracing? The
Still hand
braces
carved.
are the same?
Yep, the same size braces that we always use. We're simply using a laser to go ahead and cut the holes, and we're not claiming to be the first people to ever do this, right? I know Kevin Ryan, I believe, has done guitars that have weight relief braces before, and some other small luthiers have done these things before.
I think River Song in Canada.
Yep.
I've seen that.
Exactly. So we're not beyond, when you see a good idea, you know, take what someone else is doing. If it's smart, it's good, then let's see if it works within what we're trying to do. And in this particular case, we feel like it did.
So it makes the guitar lighter, which I really like.
Yeah.
Because I like light guitars myself. Because I perform, so I personally want a cutaway. I'm really glad you brought the GPC back.
Okay, good, thank you.
I want a cutaway, I want it light, I want a pickup system. So that's really good for me. I got a question, I thought this last night. If this makes these guitars lighter and more responsive, what would happen if you did this to a standard set of wood, like rosewood and Sitka?
Right. I think it would have an effect. We're playing with that idea right now.
Okay.
We have to be a little careful just because of who we are. So I have to be careful where we apply some of the new things that we're doing. I'm not looking, I mean, we'll upset the faithful a little bit enough with this as is. But if I just start taking D28s and doing this to the braces and really change the voicing a lot on the D28, I'm not so sure people are going to react as positively.
Right.
But we're certainly trying to create a path forward where we can do new things, explore new tonal options for people. There's a lot of D28s, there's a lot of Martin D's out in the field. We're closing in on our 3 millionth guitar. And our guitars last. It's not like you don't throw them away. They're not big lighters. You know, they hang around for a long time. And so there's a lot of them out there. And there's usually not a shortage of finding a D28 if you want one.
When you do something this radically new and different, how do you test the longevity of it? Because obviously this is
yeah.
How would you test this long term when it's such a new instrument?
We have a machine called an Instron machine, which essentially tests how much pressure something can take. And so we do all of those testings. We have sound room testings. We have environmental chambers that we put the guitars in, and then we can accelerate longevity in the environmental chamber. We can move the temperatures from 0 to 150 degrees and see how the glue performs and all the other things inside. So we're very, very careful when we put product out that we're trying to get the best out of it that we can. And when you give a lifetime warranty, you better be careful.
And when you were building this, did you have a reference guitar? Did you take an HG28 and say, let's make it sound like that? Or did you say, let's just take the fundamental sound and improve on it?
We took the fundamental sound and improved on it. We went out, we go out and purchase lots of competitive guitars. So we see what other maple people are doing. We bring them in, we test those guitars. We try to get some modal testing on them. We see how the tops move. We test all the different frequencies in those guitars, and then we model that against what we're doing and kind of say, okay, their guitar may be better here, but ours is better there. Can we move it one way or another? What do we want to see? What do we like about this guitar? What do we not like about it? And we try to be as thorough as we can. It's not, believe me, I wish there was a time where you could just say, Fred Greene has some stupid idea and he just wants to put it out there. It's not quite that simple. Too many people sort of make their livelihood on what we put out. So we really try to think about it as deeply as we possibly can.
You have a lot of pressure too, because the legacy of Martin is so amazing. That's why most people like it. And then you're trying to move against it in a way.
Correct.
So you always got that balance.
Yeah, I always look at everything we do as additive, not as a subtraction. We talked about it a little bit yesterday, which was we're not going to stop making all the iconic models people love so we can make this instead. That's not what's happening. You can still buy the triple O's and the double O's and all the stuff you've always loved, but we want to give you something fresh and something new. And we also recognize there's a different generation of guitar player coming, and their needs and the way that they interact with the instrument is not the same as people did in 1937. There's so much digital recording and the way people use the instruments, people tapping on tops in a way that they didn't used to, all kinds of crazy stuff. And we want to be part of that creative process for these people, for these artists.
Will we see, I know Chris mentioned AI. I've not heard him mention actually, I don't think so, but he mentioned AI, but
he did.
Are Martin going to go into that kind of tech and for the building process, design process? Do you see, when this was kind of leaked online, people mentioned maybe it might be carbon fiber. Is there a place for all that, or is that way too late for Martin guitar?
I think there's a place for it in the market. I'm not so sure Martin has to carry the torch on all of it. We're hoping that by doing this, and I spoke to this a little bit Wednesday at the press conference, which I want the fact that we're doing something that maybe upsets some of our traditionalists, to help other manufacturers sort of push the boundaries a little bit, to do some different things. Don't be afraid to experiment, right? If it's not working, you can stop making it. You're not locked in for a lifetime, right? We're trying to find things that resonate with people and inspire them to want to pick the guitar up and play. And I think it would be arrogant for us to assume that a D28 is the only instrument that inspires people. Nobody, that's it, right? It doesn't work like that. So, I hope other manufacturers start doing things other than just painting different colors on guitars and then trying to call them brand new. There's not a lot of innovation there.
I think it's great. I love traditional.
Me too.
I come to NAMM to see all the new crazy stuff as well.
Right.
And I think it's great that a company like Martin with that legacy is trying new things.
Exactly.
And like you said, we don't have to buy them. But I think what people should do is go out and play them and then see if they want to buy one or not, right?
The proof's in the pudding. I mean, you go out, you play it. If it speaks to you and you're excited by it, well, then you can consider purchasing it. And if it doesn't, then pick up the guitar next to it and try that one, see how that one makes you feel.
But actually 4 years ago, you brought out the SC guitar.
Right.
So
that was far more radical than this in a weird way.
So this isn't like a whole new step for Martin. You've actually been doing some things as well.
Once again, it goes back to our original question, is trying to create a path forward for the next generation of people who are interested in Martins and people who are running the Martin Guitar Company. It says, hey, these guys were really willing to go out and try new things, and now we can do maple guitars, now we can do walnut guitars, now we can do whatever tone woods, because they help blaze a path for us within our own brand. I know other companies do it, but within our brand and what's available.
Well, I look forward to playing it in a quieter place than the NAMM
I look forward to your feedback. I really want to hear what you think.
I will let you know what I think.
Where it's a more quiet
and
space.
now we've spoken, I'm also excited for next year.
Yeah.
To see what else and where this will go to. I love following the journey, as you know, and I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much. All right, have a great day.
Thank
See
you.
you later. So I'm here with Robert Goetzl at NAMM 2024, and he is the artist behind these guitars. And Robert, you've had some of guitars that you've painted before. So can you tell us about these ones, and also how do you come up with the ideas for this art?
Well, I'm here with Aaron Short, and so we're here at NAMM. And what you're seeing is the D. Robert Goetzl 7 and 8. Obviously, 8 guitars have been hand painted so far. The past 6 have been here at other shows, but so this is this year's offering. And the process is usually the same, where I usually come up with my own themes and present them to somebody at the factory, usually Tim Teal, and you know Tim. But this time, at least with the Koi guitar, Tim suggested that maybe the theme should be the Koi. And I thought, well, why not? We'll go with that. But strangely, what it did was open up the design a little bit, because I could use this koi fish design and utilize the sound hole in the bridge and compose that into the painting. So now the fish can swirl around this shape. usually this canvas, this guitar, with this sound hole right in the middle presents problems with the composition. I've got to work around it. Well, this time I can utilize it, which is really nice. So the fish are kind of swimming around the sound hole and coming down and under the bridge. And it almost gives a sense that they are confined to this pond shape, right, of the guitar.
So do you always, when you start the idea for the guitar art, do you always start with the fact there is a sound hole and use that to influence the design, or was that a coincidence?
No.
Which way round do you work?
I'm very aware that there is a hole. It is a pothole in my mind. I've got to avoid it, and a bridge. And then, so Tim's, yep, and that bridge, and as I'll talk about that.
Here too.
And a neck, yeah, thanks for reminding me. All of this great space utilized by the guitar. And I have to remember, it is my canvas, but most importantly, it's a Martin guitar, and it's got to sound good. The Martin name is on the top. My name is hidden way up under here. If you look on the neck block, I do have a name in there, but my name is not on the top of the guitar. So once Tim suggested the koi guitar, like all of my designs, I usually start with a watercolor drawing, a pencil sketch, a watercolor drawing, and I lay it out in scale so that there's nothing to chance. Because once I move off that paper and they give me a full body that's already built, that's when the process begins, and I want to answer all of my questions, color, composition, beforehand. I don't want to leave anything to chance, because there's enough to chance anyway, because yes, I do try to replicate that watercolor sketch, but accidents happen, right? The way the watercolor kind of sits on the wood changes from wood to paper. And I utilize that and make it work and use tiny brushes. And if you look at the detail, you can sort of see all these tiny brush strokes. So that's that theme.
So this is, you're painting onto this yourself?
Very thin.
Martin do now have a printer.
Oh,
and there's a lot of people now talking about the printer that Martin used on certain guitars.
Yes.
But this is hand
done, one guitar.
So it's only one
and done.
Is this for sale?
Oh yeah.
But only one exists.
The price is $1,999.
Because not only is
and the artist cannot buy his own artwork.
Not just a Martin guitar, it's also hand painted by this artist.
Yes. So it's considered playable art.
Playable art.
Right? It is a painting, but it is a really good sounding guitar as well.
Great. Now you have this one as well, which I haven't seen yet.
Yes.
This is the Robert Goetzl 8 guitar.
And so this guitar, this is going to sound weird, but this guitar started as a backpacker. And you ask me, what am I talking about? Well, I was given, out of the blue, a backpacker to paint without any theme. And the reason I was given it was that it was a milestone backpacker. It was the 300,000th backpacker that they ever made.
Okay. They made 300,000 of them?
Chris Martin was told years ago that they are never going to make more than 5,000.
Wow.
So here they are, I don't know how many years later, making the 300,000th backpacker. And if you're familiar with that shape, it's a very narrow body. And I needed to come up with a design that would be impactful visually. So I did this sort of candy skull, sugar skull, butterfly wing motif on that. And Fred Greene at Martin Guitar saw it, fell in love with that design and said, Robert, you need to do one on a dreadnought. And so I embellished this theme. I took it just from the sugar skull and the wings to now this marigold and blue kind of design on the guitar.
And for this one, you have the circle here.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I try to incorporate a little bit of that sound hole. So this represents the Mexican culture, the Day of the Dead, and what I found in my research for this was that it's a celebration of life. It's not the mourning of life, but it is a celebration and remembrance that the people who are gone are actually still very close and with us. And so like the monarch butterfly represents sometimes the souls of the dear departed. And the sugar skull also represents those people who have left And sugar skulls are given to children sort of like, instead of weird Halloween masks here in the United States, the gruesome ones, the candy skulls represent those dear departed ones as well, but in a very lively and celebratory way.
It's so amazing to have the artist here to explain this, because like the songs, some people don't like to explain what the song is about.
Yes.
But when I hear the thought process behind this, it just gives me a whole new level of appreciation.
Yes.
Honestly.
And not only that, the story behind a monarch butterfly is really interesting in that, yes, it has a strong representation in Mexican culture, but there is a monarch biosphere in Mexico where butterflies by the millions congregate before they make this long trek, this journey right up to the United States. And milkweed is so important to their existence. So if you look in there, there's a milkweed label, and then there's the label that I have for the guitars, which is with my watercolor palette. But so this is it's a very fanciful guitar, very bright. It's getting a lot of great reaction, and I think surprisingly, when people sit down and play it, they go, "Wow, this actually sounds really good too." And that is the whole point of it. It's supposed to sound like a really good Martin guitar.
Your logo is also a sound hole.
What's that?
Your sticker is also a sound hole.
Yeah, well, that's my watercolor palette. That is really the thing that I use when I'm painting. That's watercolor in that circular ceramic palette.
And can you give us a preview of what you're working on?
I think you'll be surprised.
Awesome.
I always have designs, so I'm very excited. We're going to see how many I do. It's been suggested that maybe I should do 6 more, but that's a pretty heavy lift, maybe, because it's a very time-consuming process. Very thinly applied paints. Microscopically, if you look, it's got a lot of hills and valleys, and when you're spraying lacquer on that, the lacquer would get thicker and thicker to cover that up. So what I do is I sand very carefully back my painting as well to make it as smooth as possible and thin before any lacquer is applied. So that does it. That explains it in a nutshell.
Thank you for your insight. It's great to see you.
Good to see you too,
Congratulations
Aaron.
on the guitars.
Yeah.
At the Martin booth 2024. We'll see you again soon. Thank you, Robert.
Thanks for coming by and letting me talk and become more hoarse.